The sweltering August morning of 2018 began with an unusual disturbance on Maple Street in the town of Rogers, Arkansas. 6 unmarked police cars quietly pulled up in front of a modest 2-story building bearing the sign Ramirez Fitness Center. Neighbors peered through their curtains as officers in tactical gear fanned out and took positions around the area. Inside, 41-year-old Clara Ramirez was mopping the gym floor, a routine she had maintained for over a decade as a boxing trainer, gym owner, and the wife of a man who had mysteriously vanished in 2002. At 7:45 a.m., a sharp knock echoed through the building. Clara Ramirez, Benton County Sheriff's Office. We have a warrant for your arrest in connection with the 2002 disappearance of Eddie Ramirez. The officers later described how the woman's hand trembled slightly as she set down the mop, yet her face remained strangely calm, as if she had been waiting for this moment for 16 years. Before we dive deeper into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss the latest cases. Rogers, Arkansas, summer of 2002. The small town nestled in the Ozark Valley was shrouded in stifling heat, with oak-lined roads stretching toward the winding White River on the town's edge. Late in the afternoon, a reddish sunset bathed the quiet downtown, where residents were accustomed to a slow pace of life and the familiar summer sounds, crickets, the distant rumble of trucks fading on the highway. At the corner of Maple Street, the lights were still on at Ozark Boxing and Fitness. 35-year-old Eddie Ramirez, the local boxing coach, was wrapping up his final training session of the day. Of Puerto Rican descent, muscular, outgoing, and well-liked by his students and neighbors, Eddie finished the class, took photos with a few young trainees, then gradually turned off the neon signs, locked the gym doors, and left. His white pickup rolled out of the parking lot and disappeared down the empty road, lined with thick trees. A nearby neighbor later recalled seeing his truck heading south, toward the residential area where his wife, Clara Ramirez, and her 2 children from a previous relationship were waiting at home. In their small kitchen, Clara was preparing dinner while the wall clock ticked steadily. The food slowly cooled. The sound of the television drifted in from the living room, mingling with the breeze blowing through the open windows. Time passed, and Eddie still hadn't returned. She picked up the landline and called her husband, but was met only with an endless ringing tone. Clara stepped out onto the porch, staring down the dark road, no headlights in sight. A growing unease tightened in her chest. She checked the garage and the front yard. Everything was untouched, enveloped in silence. She called a few acquaintances and Eddie's training buddies to ask if he had stopped anywhere after work, but no one had seen him. Near midnight, a light rain began to fall, wind gusting through the trees and rattling the house. Clara sat motionless by the phone, staring out the window where rain streaked the glass. When the clock edged past late hours, she hesitated for a few seconds, then dialed the Rogers Police Department. Her voice trembling, she reported that her husband had left the gym hours ago, but had not come home. On the other end of the line, the dispatcher logged the information, confirmed the address in South Rogers, and immediately relayed the report to the night patrol unit. Less than 10 minutes later, the call went out over the radio system. Deputies Collins and Morse were dispatched to the scene. They arrived at the Ramirez home in the light rain, their patrol lights reflecting off the wet pavement. Clara opened the door looking exhausted and tense, leading them into the living room that still smelled of the unfinished, now cold dinner. Morse pulled out his notebook and began documenting every detail according to procedure: victim's name, age, height, weight, hair color, distinguishing features, occupation, and vehicle. Clara explained that Eddie was a boxing coach at Ozark Boxing and Fitness, that he habitually stayed late to clean up after classes and usually got home around 9:30 or 10 p.m. She insisted he never slept at the gym or left without telling her. Collins asked about the last clothes Eddie was wearing. Clara said a gray athletic shirt, black workout pants, and old white sneakers. They asked whether Eddie had any health issues, debts, or personal conflicts. Clara said he was perfectly healthy, his job was stable, and he had no disputes with anyone. When asked for the most recent photo of Eddie, She opened the family album and pointed to one taken 2 weeks earlier on his 35th birthday at the gym, smiling brightly among his students. The deputies noted the vehicle description: white pickup, Arkansas plates, fairly new, usually parked in front of the gym. Collins radioed dispatch to check traffic systems for any sighting of the truck on the route from the gym to the house in the past few hours. Nothing. They asked for Eddie's cell and home phone numbers. Both were called on the spot and went straight to no signal. In the initial report, Collins wrote under last seen, left Ozark Boxing and Fitness Gym, late afternoon same day, confirmed by a student. Before leaving, Morse explained that per protocol, the case would be treated as a civil missing person for the first 24 hours. Unless specific signs of foul play emerged. Clara signed the missing person report and provided a list of Eddie's friends and gym employees. When the deputies left, the wall clock read nearly 3 a.m. The report was immediately sent to the main office in Bentonville, where Lieutenant Marvin Hale, head of missing persons cases in the area, would take over. The next morning, file missing person case #02471 was created in the system. Victim Eddie Ramirez, 35-year-old male Puerto Rican descent, resident of Rogers, Arkansas. The information was entered into the state database and forwarded to neighboring counties. The case summary stated, "No signs of criminal activity at time of report. Subject believed missing after leaving workplace, possibility of voluntary departure not ruled out." The night shift ended as dawn broke. The first faxes with detailed descriptions of the white Arkansas plated pickup were sent to patrol stations along Highway 62 and the White River area. The alert spread through the quiet morning air, while fog still clung to the roads and fields on the town's outskirts. Minutes later, Rogers forwarded the information to Benton County Command, where an urgent search order was issued. The entire local police and rescue force was mobilized, ready to sweep key areas. Lieutenant Marvin Hale was placed in direct command of the search and set up a temporary coordination center in the Ramirez garage. From there, he assigned 3 main search teams, one along the route from Ozark Boxing and Fitness to the south residential area, one around the small forest bordering Highway 12, and one along the White River bank. 2 patrol units were deployed with radios, flashlights, topographic maps, and K-9 units. Clara stood on the porch, watching the convoy disappear into the thin morning mist. In downtown Rogers, the local radio station began broadcasting news of the missing boxing coach and asked the public for information. The first volunteers arrived from the gym community, bringing photos of Eddie to post at stores and gas stations. By 8 a.m., the entire neighborhood had been preliminarily searched, no suspicious traces. The second patrol team expanded outward to the town limits, checking dirt roads leading to the river. On a curve near the forest edge, they noted faint tire tracks in the damp soil, but couldn't identify the vehicle type. The K-9 unit was released with a scent article from Eddie's clothing, taken from the house. The dogs followed the riverbank, but quickly lost the trail when the wind shifted. By noon, the temperature soared, steam rising from the river and making the air oppressive. Teams rotated short breaks and continued. Early afternoon brought more civilian volunteers, including Eddie's friends and students, who were divided into small groups to check streets, vacant lots, and abandoned warehouses. One student said he saw Eddie drive south from the gym the previous night, but couldn't recall the exact time. Hale noted the statement. By late afternoon, the search radius had expanded to 3 miles around Rogers. Along the White River, police marked numerous small trails leading to the water's edge with reflective stakes for later checks. As daylight faded, rescue teams used flashlights to probe bushes and paths, finding only old footprints mixed in the mud. Hale requested additional resources and lighting for the night shift. Late that evening, flatbed trucks with portable floodlights arrived, creating clusters of harsh white light in the dark forest. Police coordinated with civilian patrols to circle the marked zones. One team stopped to inspect an old wooden bridge over a creek, but found nothing unusual. At the Ramirez home, Clara sat by the phone, answering calls from concerned friends, her face growing more weary. Around midnight, the search teams returned to command to compile results. The report noted, no body, vehicle, or personal items found, no witnesses after he left the gym. All traces ended along the route between downtown and the riverbank. Hale signed off on the first day's search, noting no clear criminal activity detected. He briefed his team and decided to expand the search the next morning to deeper forest south of the White River and nearby abandoned fields. Around 2 a.m. As the last patrol left, the portable floodlights dimmed one by one, returning Rogers to its usual quiet. Only the sound of crickets filled the darkness, and a heavy atmosphere settled over the town, where people were beginning to sense that Eddie Ramirez's disappearance was no longer a simple matter. Early on the second day, Benton County search teams returned to the White River bank to expand the area, as approved by Lieutenant Hale in the previous night's briefing. The weather was cooler, thin fog hovering over the water and limiting visibility, but dawnlight made remaining traces easier to spot. 2 officers from the Eastern Patrol, moving along a dirt trail about half a mile from the river, noticed something glinting in the thick foliage. Approaching closer, they realized it was the front end of a white pickup truck, partially covered in dust and dry leaves. The license plate was immediately confirmed to match Eddie Ramirez's vehicle. The discovery was radioed to command. Lieutenant Hale and the forensics team rushed to the scene. The area was cordoned off with yellow police tape in a 10-meter radius around the truck. Officers recorded the time of discovery, weather conditions, and exact GPS coordinates. The pickup sat tilted on damp ground, roughly 20 meters from the riverbank, front wheels slightly sunk in mud, with no signs of heavy impact. Doors were closed, windows intact, no major scratches. Hale ordered photos taken from all 4 directions, from tire positions to surrounding fallen trees, for later trajectory comparison. Another team swept a 30-meter radius with metal detectors and found no foreign objects. The ground was wet but showed no signs of struggle or drag marks, only a few faint, indistinct old shoe prints. When the doors were opened under forensic supervision, the interior was tidy, driver's seat adjusted for someone of Eddie's build, dashboard undisturbed, keys still in the ignition. Technicians wearing gloves checked every compartment, finding no ID or notable personal items. They collected dust and fabric fiber samples from seats and floor for analysis. Every detail was labeled, photographed with scale rulers. Clara was brought to the scene to identify the vehicle. Escorted by an officer, she stood behind the tape. Upon seeing the truck, she nodded and confirmed it was her husband's. Her confirmation was documented. The vehicle was then sealed, evidence tagged, and signed by Lieutenant Hale and the lead technician. Before towing, the team measured terrain slope, tire direction, and ground tracks for trajectory analysis. A specialized tow truck arrived, hooked cables, and pulled the vehicle out of the slippery dirt. Once loaded, additional wide-angle photos were taken and the tape resecured. All data, photos, and samples were sealed in evidence boxes and transported directly to the Benton County Evidence Locker under Hale's supervision. The preliminary report stated, vehicle belonging to victim Eddie Ramirez, located, no signs of struggle or external damage, scene intact. The case was flagged for the technical examination phase, awaiting forensic lab results. As the tow convoy left the riverbank, the sun was high, its light sparkling on the water and reflecting off the fluttering yellow tape in the clearing that had now become the focal point of a widening investigation. After the white pickup was removed, the Benton County forensic team remained on site to fully survey the surrounding riverbank area of the White River. Lieutenant Hale ordered the cordon maintained, and the search radius expanded another 30 meters into the dense forest. Technicians used ground-penetrating scanners and UV lights to look for blood fibers or small metal objects that might have been dropped. Along the trail leading to the river, they documented numerous overlapping old tire tracks, some deeply imprinted in mud, others faded by the previous night's rain. Rain had distorted most of the surface, making direction determination difficult. Technicians photographed each track, measured wheelbase distance, and logged everything in the scene notebook. On the eastern edge of the low-lying area, small shoe prints appeared mixed in the mud, too indistinct to determine size or sole pattern. Another team moved west to check grassy areas previously flooded by high water. They found a few glass bottle shards, wood pieces, and drift debris, but nothing of evidentiary value. The K-9 unit was deployed next, 2 dogs specially trained for missing person searches. The handler presented Eddie's jacket provided by Clara for scent, let the dogs smell it, then released them along the riverbank. Both dogs followed the dirt trail, weaving through low branches, then split, one returning near the truck location, the other moving another 200 meters into thinner forest. At the forest edge, both circled briefly, then lay down, indicating the trail was lost. Technicians marked the spots with wooden stakes for future reference. Meanwhile, the forensic team continued scanning with metal detectors and infrared cameras. Images showed minor soil disturbance at a few points, but no buried objects or signs of struggle. Hale ordered every finding, no matter how small, meticulously documented. As the sun grew intense, the ground began drying, revealing additional faint tire tracks extending toward the water's edge. Though most had been largely washed away, another group walked half a mile downstream, scanning with binoculars and shining lights under large tree roots. No further discoveries beyond natural bank erosion. After nearly 3 hours, the technicians regrouped and reviewed collected items, over 200 scene photos, 8 soil and mud samples, and 7 tire track measurements logged. Hale and the mapping specialists assessed the terrain, concluding the area was highly susceptible to trace alteration by rain and groundwater, with low likelihood of preserving intact evidence. He decided to wrap up the day's survey, noting the entire area around the truck discovery had been thoroughly scanned and photographed, with no signs of struggle, dragging, or victim-related items found. The cordon tape was left in place with additional warning signs posted. As the technical vehicles departed, the sun hung low, casting orange light on the calming river. Sample containers and memory cards holding photos were sealed and transferred to the Benton County office for storage and analysis. The first riverbank survey concluded without yielding any clear evidence, only faint mud streaks and churned earth, left by the footsteps of searchers after a long, fruitless day. The day after the technical team completed sealing the evidence samples and transferring all scene data back to Benton County, Lieutenant Hale directed the next step, collecting full statements from everyone directly connected to Eddie Ramirez. The first interview took place that morning at Clara Ramirez's home, in an atmosphere still heavy after 2 days without news. She sat at the kitchen table, hands clasped together, voice hoarse and exhausted. When asked about their marriage, Clara said their life was stable and without any serious problems. She described Eddie as cheerful, showing no signs of depression, no debts, and he had never mentioned leaving Rogers. They had no mortgage. The gym was running normally with a steady number of members. Hale asked about recent conflicts. Clara only mentioned minor things, like him coming home late, or arguments about household spending. She stressed that those disagreements never went beyond normal. Hale asked her to list her husband's close friends, employees at the gym, and regular members. The list was quickly handwritten, and among the names was Miguel Torres, noted as longtime friend, assistant trainer. When asked the last time she saw Eddie, Clara said it was that same morning. He left the house at 8, saying he'd be late because of an extra evening class. After an interview that lasted nearly an hour, the statement was signed, with Hale's preliminary note, no clear signs of deception detected, witness cooperative, calm demeanor. That same afternoon, the investigation team moved on to interview Eddie's members at the gym. The place had remained closed since the disappearance, but Clara had provided a spare key. Inside, everything was tidy, equipment neatly arranged, and the schedule board still showed Eddie's name for classes throughout the week. 5 members were called in, including the front desk employee and the assistant trainer. All confirmed that Eddie had finished his evening class as usual, said goodbye to everyone, and left. One person recalled that he stopped at the door to talk for a few minutes with Miguel Torres, then drove off heading south. No one noticed anything unusual. When asked about his personality, everyone described Eddie as cheerful, responsible, never skipping a class or traveling without notice. The receptionist said he received no phone calls that evening, and his schedule had been normal. Hale cross-checked the member check-in system and confirmed every session ended on time. There were no signs of disputes or incidents during training. One member mentioned that in recent weeks, Eddie had seemed tired and often stepped outside to take calls, but no one knew who he was talking to. That detail was noted for follow-up. When asked about Eddie's relationship with his wife, most said they were a normal couple who often organized small events for members together. One person said Clara sometimes came to the gym to collect fees or check the books, but rarely stayed long. No one had seen them argue or show public tension. Most members believed Eddie had no reason to disappear. Interviews continued into the evening. A total of 13 people were questioned. Hale and the team compiled a summary table that recorded no direct witnesses after leaving the gym, no evidence anyone accompanied the victim, departure from workplace appeared normal. Statements were consistent regarding the time classes ended, but his exact route afterward could not be determined. Based on this, police concluded Eddie's disappearance window was between leaving the gym and when Clara began calling without answer, roughly a 3 to 4 hour period with no trace. The report was further supplemented with bank confirmation that Eddie's credit card had no transactions since August 10th, and his phone record showed no outgoing calls after leaving the gym. By the afternoon of the third day, Hale held a brief meeting with the investigators and agreed to make the case public to solicit community tips. The Benton County office issued a press release with a photo and detailed description. Eddie Ramirez, male, 35 years old, 5'11", 180 pounds, black hair, brown eyes, missing since the night of August 10, 2002. Last seen leaving Ozark Boxing and Fitness in Rogers. The notice was sent to local television stations, published in newspapers, and posted in stores throughout the area. Color missing person posters were plastered across downtown Rogers, shopping centers, gas stations, and schools. Police set up a tip hotline and staffed a 24-hour team at the office. In the case file summary, Hale noted, no apparent motive for voluntary departure, no evidence of criminal activity yet identified. Accident remains a possibility. Clara continued to be contacted for updates and signed consent for full access to the family's financial records. By day's end, all statements, interview transcripts, and the press release were entered into the Benton County system under case number missing person case #02471. Eddie Ramirez's missing person file was officially opened, marking the first phase in the effort to uncover the cause of this mysterious disappearance in the heart of a quiet town. After the official announcement, calls began pouring into the Benton County hotline. Most were vague reports. Some said they saw a white pickup driving past the market. Others claimed to have seen a man walking near the old Highway 12 bridge, but none provided verifiable evidence. Lieutenant Hale determined the most promising investigative direction remained the White River area, where Eddie's pickup had been found. He ordered search and rescue teams to sweep the entire riverbank, extending from the upstream section near Rogers down to the deeper southern deep water areas. On the morning of the fourth day after the disappearance, rescue teams and Marine Patrol gathered at the old boat ramp, deploying 2 motorboats, 1 inflatable raft, and underwater sonar systems. Technicians checked equipment, mapped search grids, and divided the river into segments by geographic markers. The area was considered complex: strong current, sharp bends, and thick patches of aquatic vegetation. Local residents familiar with the river all said the fast-moving water near the bridge foot could quickly sweep anything downstream and far out. From early morning, the rescue boats began cutting slowly through the waves. Each carried 2 sonar operators and one observing officer. Sonar screens continuously displayed wavy contour lines of the riverbed, but no large or unusual objects appeared. Along the banks, another team used poles and drag nets to search the water's edge for clothing, personal items, or floating evidence. Everything turned up empty, except a few drifting logs and rotten branches. After 3 hours, command recorded no signs of a body or additional vehicle beyond the previously recovered truck. In the afternoon, the search expanded southwest, nearly 2 miles from the starting point. Teams faced difficulties as upstream rain raised the water level, reducing visibility and causing bank erosion. They used grapples and anchor lines to check rock crevices beneath the bridge. Every location was marked, photographed, and confirmed clear. A ground team patrolled the dirt road parallel to the river, sweeping through sparse woods and tall grass fields. Tracking dogs were released with Eddie's clothing for scent, but they only circled the original area before stopping, finding no new trail. Hale requested an additional drone flyover by the technical unit to record the entire river surface and adjacent forest. The transmitted footage showed only murky water, swirling currents, and a few large fish near the surface. By late afternoon, after nearly 12 hours of operations, rescue forces concluded the first phase of the expanded search. The preliminary report stated, no suspicious objects detected, no body or additional vehicle signs beyond the northern riverbank area. Soil, algae, and small odd items were collected for lab testing, despite low likelihood of relevance. All sonar data, photos, and notes were saved to the case file. That evening, local television news aired extensive footage of the river search. Stations KARK and 5 News devoted several minutes to rescue boats scanning the White River and included short interviews with Lieutenant Hale about progress. He responded briefly that all investigative avenues remain open and we are not ruling anything out. Evening newspapers in Rogers and Bentonville ran Eddie's photo on the front page with headlines. Search continues on day 4, still no leads. Eddie's members organized a small candlelight vigil outside the gym where the missing person poster remained taped to the glass door. The whole town sank into a mood of unease and mourning. Back at command, Hale and the remaining officers continued reviewing each team's reports, marking areas that needed rechecking. He noted a sharp river bend about half a mile from where the truck was found, where the channel narrowed and contained many submerged logs. Despite the lack of results, Hale decided to keep personnel on standby and prepare additional equipment for the next day. As night fell, only a few figures remained at the boat ramp packing gear, lights reflected dimly off the muddy water. The boats were tied together, engines silent, with only the soft slap of water against the hulls. The entire area was temporarily barricaded, sealed, and handed over to night security. On the table inside the command tent, a large map of the White River lay spread out, covered in dense red marks indicating searched zones. In the notes section, Hale added a final line, no results, no trace. Continue tomorrow. News of Eddie Ramirez's disappearance spread quickly after footage of the White River search aired on local television. Arkansas media outlets ran stories calling it one of the strangest missing persons cases in years in Rogers. Print newspapers such as the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette and Northwest Arkansas Times featured Eddie's boxing gym on the front page, quoting police that no solid leads had emerged. On community forums, residents speculated and shared theories. Some believed Eddie may have left voluntarily due to work or family pressure, while many others suspected foul play. Rumors spread rapidly through town. Someone claimed to have seen him meeting a stranger at a coffee shop near the gym weeks earlier. Others suggested he owed money or had been threatened. Eddie's family in Florida, through phone calls and interviews, expressed doubt that he simply walked away. His mother, in a television interview, said she did not believe her son would abandon his family without contact, insisting Eddie would never do anything without thinking of his loved ones. Old training partners from his competitive days posted appeals on social media, urging police to widen the investigation and sharing photos and personal details across community groups. The gym became a gathering place. Candles, flowers, and photos were left at the glass door, along with handwritten prayer notes. Many members came to leave flowers and light candles, recalling how Eddie always talked about starting free classes for local kids. No one could accept that a man like that would simply vanish. At the same time, national media began paying attention. Regional news from Little Rock sent reporters to Rogers for special reports. As radio stations provided constant updates, the public started questioning the police investigation. Some experts commented that the absence of evidence in the truck or surrounding river area was unusual and hard to explain. At the downtown coffee shop, the disappearance became the morning topic. Some blamed a stressful work environment, others hinted at complicated personal relationships. Rumors also began circulating that Clara, Eddie's wife, might know more than she was saying, especially after her first television appearance. That day, Clark aired a short interview with Clara at home. She stood in front of a window, voice trembling as she said, "I just want him to come back, even if only to tell me he's okay." The image of the exhausted woman with dark circles under her eyes was replayed multiple times on the evening news, generating a wave of sympathy mixed with suspicion. Some viewers commented that she seemed too calm for the situation, while others felt she was simply trying to hold herself together. Police received hundreds of calls after the broadcast, mostly false tips or unverified rumors. Hale and the team had to filter every lead but found no new information. Public pressure mounted. Reporters camped outside Clara's house daily. Every move she made, grocery shopping, driving to the gym, speaking to neighbors, was watched. Television reports followed one after another, framing the story as a family shattered in the heart of peaceful Arkansas. Rogers, once a quiet town, had become restless. People talked at the market, at schools, in churches. Eddie Ramirez's name appeared in every conversation, both as a symbol of kindness and an unsolved mystery. On the fifth night after the case went public, local news reported that police continue investigating and have not ruled out any possibility. The final image of the broadcast showed Ozark Boxing and Fitness under dim light, doors closed and silent, the bold "missing. Any information, please contact Benton County Sheriff's Office" poster still on the glass. Beneath it, half-burned candles flickered in the wind, casting faint light into a Rogers night, growing increasingly uneasy. 2 months after Eddie's white pickup was found on the banks of the White River, every search and investigative effort had yielded nothing. Benton County reports became sparse, limited to brief updates stating no new developments. Rescue teams had withdrawn. Caution tape was removed, leaving only tire tracks from emergency vehicles and a few leaning marker stakes in the tall grass. Public interest, intense in the opening weeks, gradually cooled. Media moved on to other stories. Local news mentioned Eddie's case only in short recaps. Ozark Boxing and Fitness remained closed. A temporarily suspended sign posted for personal reasons. Shori largely withdrew from public view. She stopped giving interviews, declined media requests, and only occasionally visited the sheriff's office for updates. Internally, case missing person case #02471 was classified as lacking physical evidence, witnesses, and a clear investigative direction. Lieutenant Hale noted in the file, no indicators of criminal activity, voluntary departure, or undetermined accident remain possibilities. With that assessment, the case was reclassified inactive, suspended, until new information surfaced. A copy of the complete file was archived in Benton County storage, containing all scene photos, interview transcripts, sonar data, and tested samples that produced no results. In the cold, quiet storage room, Eddie Ramirez's file sat in a metal cabinet alongside hundreds of other unsolved cases. In Florida, Eddie's mother continued calling the sheriff's office weekly. She and his siblings sent repeated letters requesting the case be reopened, insisting Eddie would never leave without contact. Every response they received was the same: no additional evidence to resume active investigation. The official silence deepened the family's despair. They hired an attorney to draft formal letters to the Arkansas State Police. but the letters were routed back to Benton County with the explanation that it remained a local matter. Media that once covered the story extensively now mentioned it only in cold case segments. In Rogers, people gradually stopped talking about it. The poster on the gym window faded, corners peeling from rain and sun, and the candles on the sidewalk had long burned out. For most residents, the disappearance became part of the town's collective memory, a story retold occasionally at gatherings or church sermons, as a reminder that sometimes people vanish without a trace. Police moved on to other cases, and the search teams were reassigned. In his final summary, Lieutenant Hale wrote, "Insufficient evidence of criminal act. Insufficient basis to determine cause of disappearance. File closed pending new information." From that point, Benton County added no further updates regarding Eddie Ramirez. In Rogers, life slowly returned to normal. Mornings saw children walking to school past Maple Street, where Eddie's gym sat silent, its windows dusty. Neighbors occasionally saw Clara pull her car out of the garage, face calm, destination unknown. The disappearance of Eddie, the town's most beloved trainer, faded into obscurity, surviving only as a few lines in police archives and a quiet lingering ache in the hearts of those who knew him. Rogers resumed its old rhythm, yet within that calm remained an unnamed void, like the echo of something forever unanswered. In the years after Eddie's disappearance case was temporarily closed, Rogers gradually returned to its normal rhythm, while Clara Ramirez continued living quietly in her small house in the southern part of town. She reopened the Ozark Boxing and Fitness Gym in early 2003, telling everyone she wanted to preserve her husband's legacy and not let his hard work be forgotten. The gym operated more slowly than before, with fewer members, but Clara kept the training schedule, teaching classes herself or hiring substitutes. Many in town saw it as her way of coping with the pain, though plenty of curious and suspicious looks still followed her. Over time, conversations about the disappearance grew rarer. The press stopped covering it, only occasionally mentioning Eddie's name on lists of unsolved missing persons cases in Arkansas. Meanwhile, the case file was archived in the Benton County Evidence Storage, cataloged under Inactive 2002. Metal boxes of files lined the shelves, gathering dust, Eddie's folder sitting silently among hundreds of others. Every year, warehouse staff conducted routine inventory and marked it no update. In 2005, Clara opened a small second location of the gym in downtown Rogers, which helped stabilize her finances. She slowly reappeared in the community, attending church, doing charity work, but still avoided talking about her husband. Friends said that whenever someone asked about Eddie, she would only give a faint smile and say briefly, "It's all in the past." Eddie's mother and siblings in Florida kept sending letters to local police, asking to reopen the investigation, but always received the same reply, "No new information." In 2009, an Arkansas state court officially declared Eddie Ramirez permanently missing under civil law after 7 years with no trace. This ruling allowed Clara to process inheritance of assets and claim payout on the life insurance policy Eddie had taken out before he vanished. The insurance money was dispersed at the end of that year, with Clara Ramirez listed as the sole beneficiary. The news appeared briefly in the local legal notices and attracted little attention. From then on, Clara continued running the gym, living discreetly, almost completely withdrawn from the outside community. Neighbors described her as calm, reserved, and regular in her comings and goings, always the same silver SUV. Inside the house, everything of Eddie's remained untouched. Boxing gloves, training photos, his coaching certificate still hanging in the corner. People believed it was a sign she stayed faithful to him, even after 10 years had passed. On the police side, the case file saw no significant updates. The remaining physical evidence from the scene, soil, mud, fabric fibers, tire tracks, was sealed and stored in the evidence locker. All forensic testing had ended in 2003 without conclusive results. In Benton County internal meetings, the Eddie Ramirez case was rarely mentioned, except during annual inventory checks. Lieutenant Hale retired in 2010. His replacement logged the case as closed pending new evidence. Rogers grew quickly through the 2010s. Houses sprang up around what used to be the forest edge, where the truck was found. The old dirt road was paved, and a small park was added along the riverbank. New residents had no memory of the disappearance that once shook the town. Only longtime locals occasionally brought up the story of the boxing coach who vanished without a trace, then fell silent because no one had anything new to say. Clara turned 40. Her life was stable. She was believed still to be alone. In 2015, she renamed the gym Ramirez Fitness Center and started a training program for teens, which brought some positive attention back from the community. But behind that active exterior, she kept her private, closed-off lifestyle. No press interviews, no mention of Eddie. For 15 years, there was no additional investigation report, no new witness, no further trace. The Eddie Ramirez case gradually became just another familiar name on Arkansas's list of unsolved disappearances, a forgotten folder gathering dust in the Benton County archives. When the calendar turned to 2017, the exact 15-year mark since Eddie vanished was noted only by a few lines in the local paper: Rogers boxing coach disappearance, still unsolved. Rogers remained peaceful, the White River still flowed through the old woods, and the story of Eddie, the man who once brought energy and laughter to the little gym, now lived only in the scattered memories of those who had known him. In early 2018, after Arkansas launched a criminal investigation reform program, the State Department of Public Safety announced the creation of a cold case unit under the Arkansas State Police, tasked with reviewing unsolved disappearances and homicides from the past 2 decades. The unit's goal was to apply modern DNA analysis technology and digital data retrieval methods to re-examine cases that had stalled due to earlier technical limitations. At the central office in Little Rock, more than 200 cases were selected and prioritized. Among the assigned investigators was Detective Carla Jennings, 34. Formerly a crime scene investigator with the Fayetteville Police Department. She was known for being meticulous, thorough, and experienced with complex physical evidence. Carla was assigned to review cases from Benton County between 1995 and 2005. While sorting files, she paused at an old yellowed folder labeled Missing Person Case #02471. Ramirez Eddie. The summary report was only 10 pages. Victim description, photos of the white pickup, and notes from Lieutenant Marvin Hale. The final handwritten entry read, "No evidence of foul play, case suspended October 22, 2002. Carla opened the attached evidence bags, marked E02, 17A and E02, 17B, bloodstain from passenger seat floor, and hair from vehicle floor. Records showed the samples were collected at the scene, but never fully analyzed, because DNA technology at the time was limited. The old lab report said, insufficient quantity for identification. In 2018, the state lab could extract DNA from just a few cells. She wrote in the margin, request retesting. That same afternoon, Carla presented the file to the unit commander, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Clay, and asked to place the Ramirez case on the priority cold case review list. Clay approved and told her to coordinate with Benton County to obtain a transfer order for the evidence to the Little Rock lab. When Carla arrived in Bentonville, she was led to the basement storage area. Boxes were stacked high, labeled by year and case number. Cabinet 3, Row B, Slot 17, still held the sealed Ramirez evidence envelopes, bearing Hale's faded signature. She checked the chain of custody log, signed for transfer, and took the samples back to Little Rock. On the drive, she spread the old file on the passenger seat and reread every detail disappeared after leaving the gym. Truck found, no signs of struggle, search yielded nothing. Case suspended, everything looked neat, no obvious errors. But that very neatness bothered her. In her experience, cases that were too clean often hid something overlooked. Carla built a new timeline and highlighted gaps. Last confirmed sighting. No traffic cameras, no direct witnesses, no DNA results. She added, samples never processed with STR or mitochondrial analysis. By the end of the week, the evidence reached the central lab. Carla submitted the formal request, analyze DNA using STR and YSTR, compare to CODIS. She also asked for a search of Eddie's old financial records and phone logs, still held by the carrier, to check for any unrecorded contacts. In the cold case unit's internal report, the Ramirez case was classified medium priority. Biological evidence present, no suspect, good storage conditions. Carla was named lead investigator. The following Monday she returned to Benton County to brief the new sheriff, David Larkin, who had succeeded Hale after retirement. Larkin flipped through the file and admitted he had never studied the case closely. "We had nothing back then, no body, no witnesses. Maybe technology can help now." Carla nodded. "If the DNA is viable, we'll have answers." Driving back, she watched the White River slide past the window, its current still swirling the same way it had in the 2002 photo. 16 years had passed, but for Carla Jennings, Eddie Ramirez's disappearance had just reopened as if it happened yesterday. 3 weeks after the Ramirez file was reactivated, technicians at the Arkansas State Crime Laboratory began DNA analysis using STR and YSTR methods and ran comparisons against CODIS. The evidence arrived still sealed, with Detective Carla Jennings' signature on the chain of custody form. The envelopes were opened in a positive pressure clean room. Every step was recorded by surveillance cameras to ensure transparency and forensic integrity.
Sample E02-17A, dried blood from the passenger side floor of the pickup, was dissolved in extraction buffer. Sample E02-17B, a short hair stuck near the brake pedal, no root, was processed for mitochondrial DNA. Both were run through the ABI 3500 genetic analyzer. 2 days later, preliminary results reached Carla E02-17A. Matched Eddie Ramirez's reference profile, taken from his 1998 coaching license application, at 99.99%. This confirmed the blood in the truck was the victim's own, ruling out long-term use of the vehicle by someone else before the disappearance. However, sample E02-17B showed contamination. Part of the DNA did not belong to Eddie and exhibited male YSTR markers. When run against UDIs, the second profile produced no hits. The interim report concluded, second DNA from unidentified male, no biological relation to victim. Carla ordered a full re-examination of every 2002 witness statement for anyone who might have been inside Eddie's truck. Only a few men had trained or worked with him. One name stood out, Miguel Torres, close friend and assistant coach, mentioned by Clara Ramirez in her original statement. Carla contacted Benton County for Miguel's old file, including fingerprints and a DNA sample from his 2001 gym employment application. The lab compared the hair's genetic markers to Miguel's stored profile. 98.7% match across 16 loci, sufficient for confirmation. The second DNA belonged to Miguel Torres. The official report, with full documentation, was sent to the cold case unit. Carla read every page, her expression growing serious. Miguel Torres's DNA inside the victim's truck opened an entirely new investigative direction. In 2002, Miguel had never been a suspect, there was no known motive, and he was believed to have left the gym early that day. Now the evidence placed him inside the truck, near the critical time. Carla drafted a preliminary assessment. Second DNA matches witness Torres, requires re-interview for context and timeline. The lab confirmed the samples had remained stable after 16 years of storage. Carla cross-checked Hale's old notes, stating Miguel Torres present at gym, left before victim. That was no longer certain. She also obtained Miguel's old phone records from AT&T archives and discovered a 2-minute outgoing call, no answer placed from the White River area, on the evening Eddie disappeared, just minutes after Eddie left the gym. That small detail strengthened the suspicion that Miguel was near the scene during the critical window. Carla planned to contact him directly for a new statement and asked Benton County to locate his current address. In her report to command she wrote, DNA results prove victim bled inside vehicle. Second sample belongs to former close friend and colleague Miguel Torres. First breakthrough in 16 years. Looking at an old photo of Eddie in training gear, Carla wrote in red ink on case #02471, reopened.
New DNA link confirmed. The desk lamp reflected off the worn folder, as if after so many years, a case thought long closed had just been given a new spark of light in the darkness. Immediately after receiving the DNA results, Detective Carla Jennings sent an administrative request to Missouri State Police to locate Miguel Torres' current address. Records showed he lived in Springfield, working at a small amateur boxing gym. 1 week later, Carla and an assistant investigator drove nearly 4 hours from Little Rock to Missouri. They had arranged the meeting in advance. Miguel agreed to talk at the local police station. When Carla entered the interview room, a sturdy man in his mid-40s with tired eyes stood to shake her hand, visibly cautious. After reading him his rights for voluntary cooperation, Carla asked about his relationship with Eddie Ramirez. Miguel said they had known each other since their amateur fighting days and later opened the gym together. He admitted he once saw Eddie as a brother, but after Eddie married Clara, their contact decreased, work was divided, and there were minor management disagreements. Carla placed the file on the table, showed him photos of the white pickup and the DNA report. His face visibly paled. After a long pause, he said slowly, "I can explain." He told her that a few days after the disappearance, Clara called asking for help with some gym paperwork. When he arrived at the house, she was nervous and said police would soon be asking questions. She wanted Eddie's truck cleaned up before they examined it. She said the truck was near the river and asked him to bring rags and cleaning supplies. At first, Miguel thought it was innocent help, so he agreed. When he got there, the truck was parked alone on damp ground, door open, with a faint metallic smell inside. While wiping the passenger side floor, he noticed dark red dried stains with a strange odor, but Clara told him it was spilled fruit punch from when Eddie was moving things. She stood nearby, calm, urging him to clean it thoroughly and not tell anyone. Miguel said the whole situation felt wrong. He suspected something bad but went along because he was afraid of getting involved. When they finished, Clara tried to give him money, as thanks. He refused at first, but she stuffed it into his jacket pocket. When Carla asked why he never reported it, Miguel looked down. "I was scared. I didn't know what had happened and didn't want to be seen as part of it. I thought if it was serious, police would figure it out." He said he cut all contact with Clara afterward, and a few weeks later, left Arkansas for Missouri. Carla recorded the entire statement and had him sign it. When asked if he was certain the stain was blood, Miguel nodded. The color and smell were unmistakable. He remembered the rag being tossed into the trunk. He didn't know what Clara did with it later. Carla had him describe the exact parking spot, tire direction, terrain, and time of day. Miguel said late afternoon, cloudy, ground still wet from the previous night's rain. Details that matched the official scene report from August 12, 2002. When police found the truck, she asked about any personal relationship with Clara before or after Eddie vanished. Miguel denied every rumor, insisting they were only connected through work. When shown that his DNA was found in the truck, he was quiet for a moment, then said, "If it's there, it must be from that day. I cleaned with bare hands, no gloves." Carla wrote down every detail, including his impression of Clara's demeanor. Miguel said she was unnaturally calm, no tears, no trembling, spoke little, and stared straight at him, as if gauging his reaction. "I think she knew exactly what she was doing," he said, voice low. Carla ended the nearly 3-hour interview by taking a fresh DNA swab for confirmation. Miguel agreed, signed the voluntary form, and asked if he was in trouble. Carla told him he was currently only a witness, but his honesty would determine what happened next. As she packed up, Miguel said quietly, "I still dream about that day sometimes. I wish I had told the police right then." The meeting ended heavily. Carla left Missouri that afternoon with the recorded statement, signed copy and comparison DNA sample. That night she filed her report to the cold case unit and forwarded everything to the Benton County Sheriff's Office. Her final note in the file was 4 words, "Reinvestigation initiated, confirmed witness." With Miguel Torres's statement matching the physical evidence, the disappearance of Eddie Ramirez was officially reopened after 16 years of silence. After completing the interrogation of Miguel Torres and confirming that his statement matched the original crime scene report, Detective Carla Jennings returned to Benton County to begin the next phase of the investigation, reconstructing the complete timeline of movements on the night Eddie Ramirez disappeared. Her goal was to pinpoint the exact route from the moment the victim left Ozark Boxing and Fitness Gym to the time his pickup truck was discovered on the banks of the White River, as well as the location of the cell phone belonging to Clara Ramirez during the same time frame. Carla submitted a formal request to the AT&T Data Retention Center, the carrier that provided service to the Rogers area in 2002. Although most detailed call records had been purged, the company still retained cell tower location data for legal purposes. 1 week later, she received the technical data set, consisting of coordinates, tower IDs, and connection timestamps for 2 phone numbers, one registered to Eddie, the other to Clara. Preliminary analysis showed that Eddie's phone lost signal around 9:48 p.m. on August 10, 2002, while connected to a tower in downtown Rogers, less than a mile from the gym. Meanwhile, Clara's phone data revealed an unusual sequence of connections. The signal left the southern residential area at 9:32 p.m., traveled through 3 consecutive towers along the route leading to the White River, then stopped at Tower BNR 12, the sector covering the area where the truck was found. The signal remained there until 10:06 p.m., exactly the window when Eddie was believed to be driving home. Carla built a comparison chart, aligning every timestamp between the 2 phones. From 9 o'clock to 9:30 p.m., Eddie was still at the gym, confirmed by member statements. At 9:35 p.m., he left the downtown Rogers coverage area, heading south on Maple Street. He lost signal 13 minutes later. During that same 13-minute window, Clara's phone, according to the new data, left the residential neighborhood, moved in the opposite direction, south to north, and stopped near the river. Carla noted, high probability both devices were in the same coverage sector between approximately 9:50 and 10:10 p.m. She then requested the Arkansas State Police Technical Analysis Unit to create a movement simulation map based on the coordinates. On the screen, Eddie's path appeared in blue, Clara's in red. The 2 lines intersected at a single point, within 300 meters of the dirt lot where the pickup was recovered. It was the first geolocation evidence placing Clara at the scene on the night her husband vanished. Carla pulled the call logs as well. Clara's phone showed a brief 2-minute outgoing call to the gym's landline at 10:17 p.m. that went unanswered, a detail never documented in the original 2002 file. She reasoned Clara may have placed the call to create an alibi of not knowing where Eddie was immediately after leaving the river area. To strengthen the analysis, Carla consulted State Police telecommunications expert Daniel Croft, who had experience recovering old network data. Croft confirmed that 2002 tracking in Benton County remained highly reliable because the area had few towers, each covering a wide radius with clearly defined geographic error margins. If 2 handsets hit the same tower at the same time, the odds they were within a mile of each other are extremely high, he explained. Carla added the note, signal overlap window 9:55, 10:05 p.m., White River Trail sector. Next, she revisited the old traffic camera archives. Although most footage was gone, the evidence lockers still held a single grainy still image submitted in 2002 by a store near Maple Street. The black and white photo showed a light-colored compact car following a white pickup toward the river at approximately 9:40 p.m. The plate was unreadable, but the body style matched the sedan Clara owned at the time. Carla copied the image and added it to the comparison file. From all the data, she built a detailed timeline. 9 o'clock, 9:30 p.m. Eddie finishes training session, 9:35 p.m. Leaves gym, 9:45 p.m. Pickup passes Maple Street area, 9:50 p.m. Eddie's phone loses signal, 9:32, 10:06 p.m. Clara leaves home, appears in White River sector, 10:10 p.m. Clara's phone leaves White River sector, 10:17 p.m. Clara calls Jim landline. The timeline painted a clear picture of both individuals being in the same area during the narrow window immediately before Eddie vanished. Carla printed the color map, marked the routes with arrows, and pinned it to the cold case unit wall. Beneath the legend, she wrote a short summary: 9:00 p.m. Convergence Point, White River Bank. Staring at the map, every piece began to fit. The truck found later, the slippery mud under the tires, and Miguel's statement about being called to clean a vehicle near the river. Each previously disconnected fact now fell into the same coherent time frame. Carla finalized an 18-page report concluding cell tower location data places Clara Ramirez in the White River area on the night her husband disappeared. This new element provides sufficient grounds to expand the investigation. The report was forwarded to the Benton County office, marking the first new line written in the Eddie Ramirez file in 16 years, active, timeline reconstructed. After the timeline report was completed and superiors approved reactivation of the case, Detective Carla Jennings moved to the next step, obtaining a search warrant for Clara Ramirez's residence. Relying on the cell tower data and Miguel Torres's statement, she argued there was probable cause to believe Clara was directly involved in her husband's disappearance. The application, with all new evidence attached, was submitted to the Benton County Court. 3 days later, the judge signed Warrant 18-473 authorizing a full search of Clara's home and workspace in Rogers. On the morning of June 24, 2018, Carla and the forensic team arrived at the Ramirez residence, a single-story house with a small yard in a quiet southern neighborhood of town. Clara was not home. She was teaching the morning class at the gym. The search team consisted of 3 investigators and 2 forensic technicians, all wearing badges and body cameras to record the entire process. The front door was opened with a key provided under temporary court authority. Inside, Carla immediately noted the house was tidy and minimally decorated, with no signs of disturbance. The living room displayed numerous family photos, most old pictures of Clara and Eddie together at the gym. Carla directed the technicians to dust for prints and focus on rarely used areas, file cabinets, desk drawers, and bedroom closets. In a wooden desk drawer in the home office, they located a plastic folder containing financial documents. Among the stack, Carla found a yellow envelope marked State Life Insurance Company. Inside was a $250,000 life insurance policy on Eddie Ramirez, signed February 15, 2002, 6 months before he vanished. The sole beneficiary listed was Clara Ramirez. Also included were copies of correspondence showing Clara had filed a claim in 2009 after the court declared Eddie legally dead. Carla photographed everything, documented the seizure, and sealed the envelope as evidence. Continuing through the remaining drawers, they found gym accounting records, revenue expense ledgers, and member lists. Nothing unusual. In the bedroom, a technician called Carla over to a small plastic box hidden in the bottom drawer of the clothes closet. Inside, along with a few family photos, was a stack of loose Polaroids. Most depicted boxing workouts, but one stood out. A landscape shot of the White River Bank taken from nearly the exact spot where the pickup was recovered. The image was faded, but handwritten in the lower corner was the date August 2, 11. One day after Eddie disappeared. Carla immediately ordered close-up photos and sealed the Polaroid. Next to the photo box lay a broken vintage wristwatch of the style Eddie was known to wear at the gym, according to the original file. She logged it as evidence, but did not yet confirm provenance. While the forensic team continued, Carla examined the desktop computer in the living room. The hard drive contained mostly old training files, but technicians discovered a hidden folder named Finances_2002. It held scanned PDFs of contracts, including Eddie's bank statements showing regular transfers to a joint account in Clara's name. She noted it, seized the drive, and backed up the data. Inside the laundry closet, technicians located a canvas bag containing rubber gloves. One glove still bore dried dark staining. The glove was collected for later analysis. Throughout the 4-hour search, Carla maintained contact with the court, updating the evidence log in real time. In the attic, the team found an old cardboard box of 2002 local newspapers, one open to the story of Eddie's disappearance, featuring a front-page photo of Clara with the headline, "Wife Pleads for Help Finding Missing Husband." Tucked beside the article was a small scrap of paper with pencil writing, "Finally peace." Carla made a private note in her personal notebook to follow up on the phrase. After 4 hours, the search concluded. 14 items were seized in total, including the insurance policy, Polaroid, computer hard drive, stained rubber glove, bank documents, and newspapers. Everything was cataloged, bar-coded, and sealed in evidence containers. Before leaving, Carla walked the backyard, where thick grass concealed a faint footpath leading to the rear fence. She paused for a few seconds, looking toward the distant tree line that hid the White River. She then signed the evidence transfer form, officially closing the search at 2:47 p.m. All items were transported to the Benton County Evidence Vault for temporary storage before transfer to the Cold Case Unit for analysis. In her end-of-day summary, Carla wrote, "Discovery of unusually high-value financial documents and a photograph of the scene possibly taken immediately after the disappearance. Recommend detailed forensic examination and verification of photograph data." The memo, along with the evidence manifest, was sent to superiors, marking the most significant advancement since the Eddie Ramirez case was reopened. After seizing the evidence from Clara Ramirez's home, Detective Carla Jennings transferred the entire file and all samples to the Cold Case Unit Forensic Laboratory for further analysis. The focus of this phase was re-examining the entire 2002 crime scene data using modern 3D modeling technology to determine whether Eddie Ramirez's white pickup had rolled naturally into its discovered position or had been forcibly moved. The technical team used CAD 3D software combined with original scene photographs, GPS coordinates, topographic surveys, and hydrological models of the White River area. Each original photo was rescanned at high resolution to reconstruct the scene to scale. The 2002 topographic map showed the lot sloped gently toward the river at an average 11-degree grade on wet, slippery soil. When the pickup's weight and center of gravity data were entered, the simulation produced a clear result. The truck could not have rolled unaided to its final resting position because the front wheels were turned against the slope, and the required inertial force exceeded natural free movement. The animation demonstrated only two possibilities. The vehicle was either towed by mechanical force or manually pushed while the engine was off. Carla asked the engineers to model the scenario of the truck being parked 5 meters from the water's edge and then pushed. The resulting tire track trajectory matched the photographed skid marks almost perfectly. The team concluded the truck had been pushed while shut off, then abandoned, leaving clear sliding tracks at the rear wheels. In parallel, the forensic team re-examined the 2002 footwear impressions. Old photos were rescanned and contrast enhanced. Beneath the dried mud, they identified a small-soled athletic shoe with a clear brand logo, popular women's sneakers from the early 2000s. Carla cross-referenced the size with purchase records recovered from Clara's computer. The match was exact same brand, women's size 7.5, same production year. The preliminary conclusion was that the scene impressions most likely belonged to someone with foot dimensions matching Clara Ramirez. The lab also analyzed soil recovered from the seized rubber glove. Testing showed mineral composition identical to 2002 White River bank samples. Both contained the distinctive quartz and Montmorillonite clay found only on the east bank. Under electron microscopy, analysts further identified pollen grains from Ambrosia artemisifolia, a weed growing exclusively along that river strip, strengthening the link between the glove and the scene. When all data was compiled, Carla ordered a final illustrative map showing the correlation between vehicle position, movement direction, footwear impressions, and DNA locations.
The 3D CAD rendering displayed the entire riverbank, the white pickup in its exact recovered location, small red markers for the shoe prints directly behind the truck leading up the trail into the woods. Cross-section images revealed uneven rear tire subsidence, proving external force had stopped the vehicle rather than driver braking. The 42-page technical report was completed in 2 weeks. The official conclusion read, "Kinetic analysis determines the vehicle was manually displaced to its discovered location. No possibility exists of natural rolling or normal parking. Small footwear impressions are consistent with shoes owned by the current resident of the Ramirez home." Carla attached the results to the case file, added the 3D renderings and topographic charts to the appendix, and forwarded the soil and glove DNA report to Benton County for chain of custody confirmation. Once the state lab verified sample integrity, Carla drafted a formal submission to the Benton County Prosecutor's Office with a 12-page investigative summary. It outlined every new finding: cell tower location data, life insurance policy, Polaroid photograph, footwear impressions, and vehicle dynamics modeling. The document stated clearly, "These results demonstrate a high probability of staged scene and concealment in the disappearance of Eddie Ramirez. Request the prosecutor's office consider opening preliminary charging proceedings against Clara Ramirez as primary suspect." On July 12, 2018, the file was officially transferred to the county prosecutor. As Carla left the cold case unit that evening, the 3D simulation remained on the large monitor. The white pickup tilted on the riverbank, deep skid marks in the mud, and behind it a trail of small footprints leading straight up the slope, a chilling but precise recreation of the final moments of a disappearance forgotten for 16 years. On August 14, 2018, nearly 1 month after the supplemental forensic report was delivered to the Benton County Prosecutor's Office, a formal arrest warrant for Clara Ramirez was signed by a county circuit judge. The warrant, numbered 18502A, was issued under Title V of the Arkansas Criminal Code for suspected intentional homicide or concealment of a homicide. At 7:45 a.m., a team of 4 Benton County Sheriff's deputies, accompanied by 2 investigators from the cold case unit, arrived at Ramirez Fitness Center, the gym Clara owned. She was preparing to open for the day's clients. Her SUV was parked in the front lot. The gym door was slightly ajar, and the interior lights were already on. As the team approached, Sergeant Carla Jennings took the lead, holding the warrant in a file folder and firmly ordering anyone in the area to keep their distance. 2 deputies entered first and confirmed Clara Ramirez's identity. She was standing behind the reception counter, wearing a black workout uniform with her hair tied back neatly. When they called her name, she turned, a brief flash of surprise crossing her face before she quickly composed herself. Carla stepped forward, read the warrant aloud, and stated the charge. "You are under arrest for suspicion of involvement in the disappearance and presumed homicide of Eddie Ramirez, which occurred in August 2002. An officer read her the Miranda rights and advised her to remain silent until an attorney was present." Clara offered no resistance. She asked only one short question, "Why now?" then fell silent as the handcuffs were placed on her wrists. Deputies escorted her out the main entrance, past the stunned gazes of a few early arriving members. The area was secured for 15 minutes, while officers posted a notice of temporary closure for investigative purposes. Clara was placed in a patrol car and transported to the Benton County Sheriff's Office, a roughly 20-minute drive. During the ride she said nothing, only stared out the window. Carla sat in the back seat facing her, closely watching her expression, calm, almost defiant. Upon arrival, Clara was taken to Interrogation Room 3. Cameras and microphones were activated for continuous recording. Per procedure, the handcuffs were removed, and she was seated across from Carla and another investigator. The Miranda warning was read again. She confirmed she understood and agreed to speak without counsel present, on the condition that she would only answer what I want to. Carla began with basic questions: the last time she saw Eddie, the state of their marriage, her job and events following his disappearance.
Clara repeated virtually the same statements she had given in 2002. She said Eddie left the gym that evening. She stayed home with their 2 children, then went to bed. When Carla presented the new evidence, the life insurance policy, cell phone location data, and the Polaroid photos taken at the riverbank, Clara's face tightened slightly. She countered. What do those things prove? I've lived in Rogers my whole life. I can go wherever I want. Carla silently laid out printouts of the forensic vehicle trajectory, reconstruction, and the female footwear impressions that matched Clara's size. Clara glanced at them, gave a small smile, and said, "You think those shoe prints are mine? I'm sure you all have better things to do." The atmosphere in the room grew tense. Carla shifted to step-by-step confrontation with the evidence, starting with cell tower data, placing Clara's phone near the White River during the exact window of Eddie's disappearance. When the location map was projected, Clara stared at the screen in silence for nearly a minute. Then she said softly, "Maybe I drove past there." "I don't remember exactly," Carla asked. "Just minutes before your husband vanished, you were there. Doesn't that strike you as strange?" Clara answered firmly. "No, I didn't kill my husband." Carla showed no reaction and moved to the Polaroid of the riverbank. This was taken August 11, 2002, one day after the disappearance. "Can you explain why it was in your cabinet?" Clara looked at the photo. Her eyes flickered briefly, but her voice stayed calm. "Eddie took it, not me. Maybe he left it there," Carla replied. "The lab confirmed the photo paper and the handwriting on the back match yours. That's why we're here today." Silence stretched on. Clara leaned back, fingers laced together. The cameras captured every micro-movement, every glance. After 3 hours of questioning, she admitted nothing beyond the details she had already given. However, the behavioral analysis team later noted stress indicators when the river area was mentioned and direct avoidance regarding the insurance policy. While Clara remained in custody, technicians conducted a final search of the gym, seizing computers, security footage, and financial records. All items were sealed under the prosecutor's supervision. Outside, news of the arrest spread quickly. Arkansas media ran breaking alerts. Police arrest wife of trainer missing since 2002. Local TV stations set up tents outside the Benton County complex. Footage of Clara being escorted in dominated the evening broadcasts. In Rogers, the community buzzed. Many who knew her expressed shock. Others said, "We always figured it would come to this." Back at the office, Carla updated the arrest report in case file #02471, changing the status to suspect in custody. The internal log, closed with Miranda read at 8:25 a.m., subject acknowledged understanding and declined counsel. Investigation continues. As night fell, the light in interrogation room 3 remained on. Through the frosted glass, the silhouette of a woman could be seen sitting motionless, hands resting on the metal table, face expressionless. The 16-year investigation had finally entered the phase where no question could be dodged any longer. Clara Ramirez's interrogation resumed the next morning under the supervision of the Benton County prosecutor and the 2 cold case unit investigators. After nearly 12 straight hours, the previous day with no breakthrough, Carla Jennings changed tactics. She allowed Clara a short break, provided water and a light meal, then returned to the room with a calmer tone. No longer direct confrontation, but conversation. The lighting was softened. The cameras continued recording. Carla began slowly, reviewing the key timeline of the night of August 10, 2002, and projecting the White River map with cell phone pings on the wall screen. Clara showed no reaction, her gaze drifting across the cold metal table. Carla stated that forensics now proved the truck had been pushed down the embankment, that Clara's shoe prints were at the scene, and that a $250,000 life insurance policy had been taken out shortly before Eddie vanished. "I'm not saying you meant to do it," Carla said evenly. "But something happened that night, and you're the only one who knows." For the first time, Clara lowered her head, hands clasped tightly. The room was so quiet the recorder's faint hum was audible. After several minutes, she sighed and whispered, "I didn't mean to kill him." Carla looked up, keeping her voice neutral. "Then what happened?" Clara was silent for a long time, then began to speak. According to her, Eddie had left the gym later than usual that evening. She had driven out looking for him because they had argued by phone about the gym's finances. Eddie wanted separate accounts. She refused. "I just wanted to talk it out," she said. She told Carla she had stopped near a dirt pull-off by the White River, a spot she knew he sometimes used to smoke after closing. When they met, the argument continued. Eddie grew angry and said things that made her feel insulted. She admitted pushing him during the struggle, not hard, but he lost his balance on the muddy slope beside the river and struck his head on a rock. "I ran down, called his name, but he didn't answer," Clara said, her voice catching. "I shook him. There was blood coming from his head. I panicked. I didn't know what to do." Carla asked if she had called 911. Clara shook her head. In her panic, all she could think was that everyone would blame me. She dragged Eddie away from the water's edge, but he was no longer moving. In the darkness, lit only by her headlights, she saw blood spreading on the ground. "I sat there a long time," she said. "Then I drove home, but I couldn't stand seeing his truck still there." The next day she returned with Miguel and asked him to clean the truck because it had stains. When Carla asked why she didn't tell Miguel that Eddie had fallen, Clara answered, "I lied. I said it was just spilled juice." She admitted returning to the scene once more, dragging Eddie's body deeper into the woods south of the White River Trail and burying him shallowly with a small shovel she kept in the trunk. "I don't know why I did it," she said, tears running down her face. "I was terrified. I thought if I called the police they would arrest me immediately." Carla asked for the exact burial location. Clara bowed her head and whispered, "Past the turn onto the dirt road, there's a big arch-shaped rock. Walk another 300 meters or so, and there's a broken oak tree right there." When asked about the shovel, she said it was Eddie's small folding shovel he kept in his truck, and that she later threw it into the river. Carla asked her to draw a map of the area. Clara agreed. The sketch was rough, but clearly showed the trail direction and relative position to the riverbank. While she drew, Carla observed that her tension was easing, replaced by utter exhaustion. When finished, Clara signed the statement and noted the time 15:42 on August 15, 2018. The prosecutor confirmed the confession was recorded and procedurally valid. Carla immediately requested that the search team prepare to deploy to the location provided. Before leaving the room, Clara added in an almost inaudible voice, "I didn't want him to die. I just wanted him to listen to me." That final sentence was clearly captured on tape, marking the moment the 16-year silence was broken. In the official report, Carla closed with the decisive line, "Suspect admits presence at scene on night of disappearance, confirms physical altercation resulting in death, and provides location of concealed remains in the woods south of White River Trail." That same night, an emergency order to verify the scene was approved. The entire Benton County forensic and investigative team was placed on standby. Just after dawn on August 16, 2018, less than 24 hours after Clara Ramirez signed her confession, a combined Benton County and cold case unit team deployed to the wooded area south of White River Trail, where she claimed to have buried Eddie Ramirez 16 years earlier. The convoy, 3 specialized vehicles, 1 forensic van, and 2 escort patrol units, left headquarters at 6:30 a.m. Clara was transported in custody, handcuffed and wearing an orange jumpsuit, seated between 2 deputies. Carla rode in the front passenger seat, cross-referencing the old GPS map with Clara's hand-drawn sketch. When the convoy reached the forest, the dirt road narrowed, and vehicles stopped about 500 meters short of the target. Police set up temporary barriers and sun tarps, sealing a 100-meter radius around the suspected site. Clara's handcuffs were removed, but 2 deputies stayed at her side. She was asked to lead the way. Moving slowly along the overgrown trail, Once a drivable track 16 years ago, she walked for nearly 10 minutes before stopping and pointing to a low spot near the base of a broken oak. There? Her voice was hoarse and faint. She avoided eye contact. Clara signaled the forensic team to begin. They marked the spot with reflective stakes, recorded GPS coordinates, erected the scene tent, and set up continuous video. Technicians ran a ground-penetrating radar GPR scan. The screen clearly showed soil disturbance at a depth of approximately 70-80 centimeters over an area larger than 1 square meter. Excavation was authorized on site. The team carefully removed layers of earth, cutting roots as needed. After about 40 minutes, the distinctive smell of damp soil mixed with decomposition spread, and a technician stopped when his shovel struck something hard. They switched to small tools and soft brushes. Human bones gradually appeared, first leg bones, then pelvis, then ribs, lying on their side facing the river. Clara stood several meters away, trembling slightly but silent. When the skull was uncovered, the team determined the skeleton was nearly complete, with only partial collapse on the left side due to soil compression. Next to the right-hand bones, they found a shiny metal object, a plain gold wedding band engraved ER on the inside. Deeper digging revealed a broken vintage wristwatch and a small key ring still caked with dirt. Its leather fob rotted away. Carla made a preliminary identification. The watch and keys matched descriptions and photos of items Eddie routinely carried in 2002. All evidence was photographed, cataloged, and bagged. Soil around the remains was removed in layers for sampling. Once excavation was complete, the remaining bones were collected and sealed in forensic bag F-18-471. Clara was immediately escorted back to the transport vehicle for security. Carla and the Benton County prosecutor drafted the scene report on site, signing off on the time of recovery. The initial report read, "Adult male human remains discovered, along with personal effects, matching the description of victim Eddie Ramirez. Location consistent with statement provided by Clara Ramirez." By midday, the forensic van left the woods, carrying the remains to the state medical examiner's lab in Little Rock for DNA confirmation. Femur and dental samples were prepared for comparison. Testing took 3 days, using mitochondrial DNA matched against the victim's mother's sample retained from 2002. On August 19th, official results were delivered to Carla, 100% genetic match, no doubt whatsoever. The report stated, DNA comparison is a complete match. Victim deceased, circa August 2002. Carla forwarded the findings, scene photos, evidence logs, and lab confirmation to the prosecutor's office. When the news was announced internally, the entire Benton County office fell silent. The 16-year-old missing person case finally had its answer. That afternoon, Carla returned to the site to close procedure. Late-day sunlight filtered through the trees onto the freshly excavated patch, now covered by a white tarp. She stood quietly for several minutes, then signed the final site-sealing document. A cool breeze blew in from the river, carrying moisture and the rustle of leaves. Everything was still except the click of the forensic photographer's shutter, capturing the final images of the scene, where a secret buried for nearly 2 decades had at last been brought into the light. After DNA identification results confirmed that the body found at the edge of the forest, south of White River Trail was indeed Eddie Ramirez. The Benton County Prosecutor's Office officially issued an indictment charging Clara Ramirez with second-degree murder under Section 510-103 of the Arkansas Criminal Code. The indictment, signed on September 3, 2018, determined that the act causing the victim's death involved indirect intent and included the aggravating circumstance of concealing the body to obstruct the investigation. Carla Jennings and the Cold Case Unit completed a comprehensive report exceeding 300 pages, which included all DNA analysis results, 3D crime scene reconstruction, cell phone location mapping, Polaroid photographs, the life insurance policy, as well as detailed statements from Clara and witness Miguel Torres. The prosecution submitted the case file to the court, proving a continuous chain of actions by Clara from the night of August 10th, 2002, up to the time of her confession, demonstrating that she actively concealed the truth for 16 years. The court-appointed defense attorneys for Clara requested that the charge be reduced to manslaughter while in a state of emotional disturbance, arguing that the incident was merely an accident following an argument between the couple. However, the prosecutor strongly rebutted this, asserting that burying the body, cleaning the vehicle, and collecting the insurance payout proved Clara was fully aware of the consequences of her actions. Over the following months, the case file was thoroughly reviewed and strengthened with Miguel's testimony, in which he confirmed Clara had actively asked him to wipe the blood from the car, along with forensic reports showing the pickup truck had been pushed to the river's edge rather than parked there on its own. In late 2018, the Arkansas State Court scheduled the initial trial to begin in Little Rock in March 2019. The case attracted intense media attention. Local and national news outlets continuously covered it, calling it one of the rare cold cases solved after more than a decade. During the trial, Clara was escorted into the courtroom wearing a gray prison jumpsuit, her hair cut short, her face calm. The prosecution presented a clear chain of evidence, DNA results confirming the blood in the vehicle belonged to Eddie Ramirez, with a second DNA profile belonging to Miguel Torres, a 3D CAD model proving the truck had been pushed into the river. Polaroid photos taken at the scene the next day, a $250,000 life insurance policy, for which Clara was the sole beneficiary. And finally, the defendant's own detailed confession. During the slide presentation, the prosecutor played an audio recording of Clara speaking in the interrogation room. "I didn't mean to kill him, I just wanted him to listen to me." The statement caused several seconds of silence in the courtroom. The defense attorney attempted to emphasize the accidental nature of the incident, claiming Eddie's fall was unintentional and that burying the body stemmed from fear rather than an intent to conceal a crime. The prosecution countered by presenting financial evidence, including a letter sent to the insurance company and a payout request signed 7 years after the disappearance. The jury of 12 members, carefully selected, watched all images of the body excavation and crime scene photos over the 5-day trial and heard live testimony from Carla Jennings, Miguel Torres, and forensic experts. Miguel, in his courtroom testimony, admitted regret for remaining silent so long, stating, "If I had spoken up sooner, justice might have come sooner." The prosecution used this testimony to prove Clara had manipulated and threatened others to cover up her crime. At the conclusion of closing arguments, the prosecutor delivered his final statement: "A person can make a mistake in a moment of anger, but only someone fully aware buries the truth for 16 years. And that is exactly what Clara Ramirez did. After 4 hours of deliberation, on the afternoon of March 28, 2019, the jury returned to the courtroom. The foreperson stood and read the verdict: guilty of second-degree murder. In that moment, Clara sat motionless, hands clenched tightly, eyes vacant. She showed no reaction and said nothing when the judge sentenced her to 25 years in prison, to be served at the Arkansas Women's Correctional Facility. The verdict was entered into the record, closing one of Benton County's longest pending cases. Media, outside the courthouse, immediately reported the outcome. Television stations broadcast live as Clara was led to the transport van, cameras capturing the brief moment she turned her head toward the courtroom, where Carla Jennings was gathering her case files. The prosecutor gave a short statement to the press. "Justice is never too late, as long as we never stop searching for the truth." At the same time, Carla stood in the courthouse hallway, looking at the case nameplate, State of Arkansas vs. Clara Ramirez, feeling heavier than relieved. For her, the case ended with a clear verdict. But behind it remained the void of 16 lost years that no sentence could ever fill. As the convoy carrying the defendant left Little Rock at dusk, residents of Rogers followed the news on their screens. Many said they never thought that case would ever reach a conclusion. The 25-year sentence was recorded in the file, along with the note, "Unanimous verdict, no appeal filed." The court closed the Eddie Ramirez case file and moved it to resolved cold case. In Benton County's final summary report, the concluding line was printed in bold, "Justice served," after 16 years of silence. Following the official Arkansas State Court sentence of 25 years imprisonment for Clara Ramirez, the cold case unit carried out the final administrative step, completing the full case summary for case #02471, the disappearance of Eddie Ramirez. Detective Carla Jennings was responsible for compiling the final report, which exceeded 200 pages and contained all physical evidence, forensic data, witness statements, crime scene photos, DNA results, the judgment, and trial transcripts. The cover of the file read, "Case closed, solved 2019." All documents were backed up and sent to the state archives, with copies forwarded to the Benton County Sheriff's Office for permanent retention. In the summary report, Carla noted, "The Eddie Ramirez case is closed with a lawful conviction. All evidence and testimony were consistently verified." This is a prime example of the effectiveness of re-examining cold cases using modern DNA technology and digital data analysis. The report also recommended using this case as training material for future investigative units. On April 5, 2019, the Cold Case Unit held an internal meeting in Little Rock to announce the results. In the small room were all the investigators, technicians, DNA experts, and prosecutors who had worked on the case. Carla gave a summary of the nearly 2-year process since the case was reopened, emphasizing that interagency cooperation was the key factor that brought the truth to light. At the end of the meeting, everyone stood for a minute of silence in memory of Eddie Ramirez, the man who had been buried in silence for 16 years. 1 week later, Eddie's family flew from Florida to Arkansas to receive his remains. The funeral was held at St. Vincent Church in downtown Rogers in a solemn atmosphere. Hundreds of local residents, former students, friends, and people who had known Eddie attended. On the altar, a photo of him in his coaching attire was placed among white wreaths, beneath the words, "Finally home." His mother, now in her 70s, held Carla's hand tightly and thanked her through tears. "Thank you for never giving up," she said. "Eddie is finally home." After the funeral, his ashes were scattered along the stretch of the White River where the incident occurred, now transformed into a memorial park. The mayor of Rogers issued an official statement designating April 15, 2019, as Eddie Ramirez Remembrance Day to honor his contributions to the community and to remind everyone that justice can arrive no matter how much time has passed. The Ozark Boxing and Fitness Gym, now closed, was converted into a community space named the Ramirez Center for Youth Sports, offering free programs for children in the area. Inside, a bronze plaque was mounted on the wall bearing the inscription, "Dedicated to Eddie Ramirez, coach, father, and friend." His story became part of lectures on criminal investigation and professional ethics at the Arkansas Police Academy. Carla Jennings, in her final interview with the press, said this case changed how she views time and human perseverance. 16 years is a long time, but the truth never disappears. It just waits for someone patient enough to find it again, she said. Newspapers across Arkansas published wrap-up articles calling it the most thoroughly solved cold case of the decade. The national database also updated the case status, closed, solved, 2019. The final lines in the file were printed in bold and signed by Carla Jennings and the Benton County prosecutor. Case officially concluded. Justice delivered. Rogers returned to its peaceful rhythm, but every August, residents still bring flowers to the banks of the White River, where the story ended, to light a candle for the coach who was taken, and for the 16-year journey to find justice. The story of the Eddie Ramirez case, the boxing coach who vanished in Rogers, Arkansas, in 2002, is not only the journey of solving a cold case that lasted 16 years, it is also a profound reflection of faith, responsibility, and the power of justice in today's American society. In a country that values individual rights and the rule of law, the establishment of cold case units and the application of modern DNA technology demonstrate America's unrelenting effort to ensure that no crime can remain buried forever. The story of Clara Ramirez a woman who appeared to have adapted and lived peacefully for more than a decade after her crime, serves as a reminder that the truth never vanishes, it simply stays silent until someone brave and persistent enough, like Detective Carla Jennings, comes along to awaken it. From the life insurance policy details, cell phone data, and Polaroid photos of the riverbank, everything shows how technology and human diligence can combine to restore justice. The lesson for American society today is this: in an era of rapidly advancing technology, the truth cannot be hidden indefinitely, and in every community, transparency and personal accountability matter more than ever. The story also recalls core human values, that justice is not only punishment, but also comfort for those who have waited, like Eddie's family and the people of Rogers. In modern America, where speed and information can make things quickly forgotten, this case reminds us that perseverance, honesty, and the desire to find answers remain the foundation that keeps society moving in the right direction. Even if it takes 16 years, justice still arrives, and it arrives at the right time. If you find the story of the Eddie Ramirez case inspiring for your belief in justice and the power of truth, please subscribe to the channel to continue joining us on journeys exploring other cold cases across America. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video, where every story lights another spark of justice in the darkness of time.